Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, depending on where you're joining us from today, and welcome to our latest Workload Automation webcast for the community, CA Workload Automation iDash update. So that's what's in that upgrade. We're joined today by Karen Cleaver, who I'll hand off to in a moment. But for those of you who are in the audio broadcast listening to this, you will not be able to ask your questions verbally later. So please feel free to use the Q&A box in the lower right of your screen right in the WebEx. If you don't see that box right now, just click the question mark icon in the upper right and it will open up for you. But please feel free to ask questions along the way, and we'll make sure we get to as many of the answers as we can. And with that, I'm going to hand you over to Karen, so take it away, Karen.
Thank you. Once again, good day, everybody. So this presentation, we're going to talk about what's happened with iDash, and we're actually going to go back a few releases just in case people weren't aware of what had come about in 12.0.2, 3, 4. And then we'll talk about what's on the roadmap for iDash, where we're going to be enhancing the product, and answer any questions you may have. So that being said, let's just have to find my arrow. There we go. Okay, so that's the normal informational purposes. This session was actually given at World, and I have updated it based on some new things on the roadmap. So we're going to talk about the last 3 service packs upgrades, and then we'll talk about the roadmap. Okay. So the first one was 12.0.2. So as you're all aware, in 12.0, we came out with the new web-based UI for iDash with some updated graphics, flows, those types of things, matched them up with the WCC on the AutoSys side. In 12.0.2, we made some enhancements to integrate better with CA7. So you'll see here that we grouped data sets on the flow view for CA7 jobs. So if there were multiple data sets together, they're kind of displayed as a folder in 12.0.2, and also we allowed for conditional requirements within the CA7. Okay. We also allowed for the display of negative dependencies. They aren't obvious initially, but they're put in a folder. You can double click on that negative dependency. A pop-up will show you what those dependencies are. And you can see that there's a line in the iDash config file that says that you want to show those negative dependencies. So it is an option. Okay, some of the new features, hourly intervals in reports. So back in the beginning, you were only allowed to do for the past X number of days. Now you can actually specify, I want reports for the past, for 3 hours, for 2 hours, for 1 hour. We also added the average runtime column into the job run report. This is an iDash, this is an AutoSys report. So you can now see that column, and that value is the same value that iDash uses when making the forecast on the SLAs. So it's the iDash average runtime. Some other new features, we added application and group to the job run, job status reports. We realized a lot of people are using those fields in AutoSys, and to support the reporting functionality, making it available to people to have a report that runs against a specific application or against a specific group. So just giving you more flexibility in your reporting. And also, we gave you the start time, end time qualifiers in the time frame so that you could specify when you wanted the report to run from this time to another time, beginning to end, rather than a number of days or a number of hours. This actually gives you the ability to say, I want the reports from 10 till 2. Maybe those are your peak times, or from midnight to 6, because nobody's monitoring and I want to really quick get a report of what ran when I had that window. Okay. We also gave you the ability to specify a past run value for both AutoSys and CA7. So you could say that I want to see the number of past runs to display rather than a time frame. So I want to see the last 5 runs. I want to see the last 10 runs. giving you some flexibility once again in your reporting. And then also the support for unlimited job names and SLA names on the reports. Prior to this release, there was a restriction on it would truncate job names or report names. That's no longer in place. If you have a 64-character AutoSys job name, it will show the full 64. If you have a 64-character CA7 job name, I don't know how you did it, but thumbs up. And then, of course, the SLA names are free format, so those are also supported in a long format. Also, this is the release where we added the problematic job, which is a big benefit in terms of troubleshooting missed SLAs, to be able to go and see what jobs are a problem, and that includes long-running jobs, short-running jobs, failed jobs, terminated jobs. Anything that could cause an SLA to be predicted to miss or missed will show up in that problematic job table. And then being able to toggle between a table view and a chart view for the SLA runs, and also seeing the last runs of the job. That was also added in 12.0.2. So 12.0.2 is pretty feature-rich in terms of adding functionality from a reporting standpoint and also from troubleshooting and viewing of SLAs. So what was in 12.0.3? We actually allowed you to filter the dashboard and the SLA page based on a user-defined time range. So you can actually go in and filter the displays with a time range so that that's what shows up on your dashboard and in your SLA list page. We also provided the ability to close and acknowledge alerts from the web UI, so that not only could you get the alerts displayed, but you could also take action against them in the web UI as opposed to the FAT client, which is where that capability resided before. The goal in the long term is that all functionality will be available through the web UI, and that includes the admin tool. For those of you who still have to run the admin tool to do the configuration of iDash, if you're using it for job links or job overrides, the plan is we will move that into the web UI and obviously control it through the EAN policies that are available in AutoSys or through the iDash security that you may have set up. So that's the plan going forward. We also added support for SLA tags and SLA time zones in the trend reports. So now you can actually add the column for what time zone is my SLA in and what tag tags does this SLA appear in. So we also added support for run calendars, exclude calendar, min and max run alarms in the AutoSys job reports. So that isn't saying that you can select a report based on a calendar, but it does mean that in your report you can show the run calendar, the calendars that are being used by the actual job, and if they have min and max run alarms on them. Okay. This can be useful in terms of looking at the jobs and saying, hey, I've got a max run alarm on this job, but I've also got an SLA, so do I really need both? And, you know, using it to streamline your SLA, streamline your processing so that you're don't have a duplicated effort going on to create multiple alarms and multiple incidents from a job definition. Okay. 12.0.4, this is the GA release currently out there. I know I've got a lot of customers who are running this version. Some enhancements for the CA7 side of the house. Those of you who know me know I am not a CA7 expert by any stretch of the imagination. So if we've got questions on this, we'll see if we've got somebody on the call that knows the CA7 side. If not, we can get back to you with answers. So, but I'm going to go through these. So one of the things we allow you to do is we can now do history-based forecasting on externally demanded jobs that affect other jobs. So the forecasting takes that into consideration. Okay? We can make a prediction based on the historical runs of the job. So some of this you'll see if you're both a CA7 AutoSys user, you'll see some of the functionality of the forecasting from AutoSys is being brought over to the CA7 side. So we can look at the history and make the forecasting of the SLAs based on that history. Because up until iDash, there was no way to keep the history of CA7, and now we have a database and we can actually store that information and use it. Okay? By default, iDash will look at the last 32 days of the job history, which should be enough to get you, if you have a daily job, you've got a month's worth of data. If you've got a monthly job, you may want more, but at this point, this is the default. Okay. There's an example here that basically talks about how you have an SLA that contains a demanded job, external job A, and its flow. In the previous version, it would automatically be predicted to miss until the external job entered the workload. After it ran, then iDash was able to go ahead or was running, iDash could go ahead and do the forecasting based on the jobs coming after that in the flow. Now with this new feature, iDash can forecast based on the previous run history of that external job. So once again, it just gives you more accurate forecasts of things that are going on within the system. So we've also added the ability to create job links between two AutoSys instances. So if I have an SLA that crosses two instances of AutoSys, and this is for customers who have multiple production systems, for example, where they may have an SLA that crosses two instances and they want to be able to see that, they want to be able to create SLAs based on that. So this is where the job link comes into play. So what is a job link and where are they defined? Okay. So basically what the job link is defined actually in the admin tool. So you have to be an iDash admin to go and create. Basically, you're creating a link between two jobs that from iDash's perspective don't have a dependency because they cross an instance. So we're going to create a job link, and then when you view the flow, you will actually see a special box that points out that this is a job from another instance. Okay, and then you can click on it and get information about it. So if you only have a single production instance, this doesn't come into play as much. If you do have the multiple AutoSys instances where you have cross dependencies, this will help you out in terms of managing your SLAs. One of the other big pluses, I think, that was added in 12.0.4, and I know I had a lot of customers that were asking for this, is the trending report. I want to see a report showing are my run times trending up? Are they trending down? Are they all over the place? I need to see that information. I want to see it for the history. So we basically added the trend statistics to the job run report. It's not a new report. It's the job run report, but there's a checkbox on it that says include the trend statistics. And when you check that, you're now going to be able to see these trending reports. The one caveat here is it's only available in PDF form because of the graphics that are associated with it. We added some new columns for the trending, and I have an example in here, so you'll see that in a bit. And the other point to make is that only success job status is valid for inclusion. We didn't want to include jobs that failed because a lot of times jobs that fail finish very quickly, and it can throw off the actual trending. It would be an outlier. So we just said, let's pick the success job, and that's what we report on from a trending standpoint. And so here's an example of and this is a little squished down because of the cut and paste, but this is an example of that trend report. So this is for a specific job in an instance. It tells me how many runs I've got because I selected a time frame. My aggregate trend, I'm actually trending slightly down here, which is this line, the average run time. If that averages out, it's a slight downturn. This is the job trend line, which is going up. There's a little different algorithms to calculate that, and these are the actual run times. Okay? And what it does is it produces one of these reports for every job that you select when you run this report. So if you have a job, an SLA, and you want all the jobs in that SLA or all the jobs in a group, you run the report, you get all that information, and you get a graph like this for each of the jobs in that selection. Okay? So that's why PDF only. One word of caution, use reasonable names in here. I have a bad habit of just typing in letters. So do as I say, not as I do. So that's one of the big features of the 12.0.4 release. I would strongly suggest the upgrade's pretty straightforward. It's not really, it's just install it. It's pretty straightforward. Obviously, there's database changes, but it's a straightforward upgrade, and you have all these new features, functionality available to you. The one caveat is if you are going to Service Pack 7, and we'll talk about that with the roadmap, you're going to want to be aware of a couple of things, okay, if you're using iDash as well. So the roadmap. And if you've seen other roadmaps, you know that this is our standard format, what we've delivered, what we're planned, and what we have under consideration. Planned probably means it has a release associated with it. Under consideration means it's coming, but we're not sure when. Okay, so these are all subject to change, which is noted at the top. They could drop off, they could come sooner, they could come later. So delivered in 12.0.4, we also delivered some technical things. One is the support for SQL Server Cluster Always On. So now you can have a SQL Server database that is highly available, and you don't have to worry about iDash syncing between the two databases. One nice thing about iDash is if you do have two databases, it will resync itself automatically. There's no auto BCP for iDash. It catches up on its own. Some of the other things we did was people were talking about how much memory we were using, and we actually went out and rewrote some of the calculations and optimized the database to use less JVM memory and reduce the database transaction logs. So doing things for performance as well as for functionality. So what's coming in 12.0.5? For those of you who are using CA7, we're going to give you a trend report. So like the AutoSys report, you will be able to look at trending statistics for CA7 jobs as well when you define a CA7 job run. So it'll be the same thing, you'll click show me the trend statistics, and you will get a trending report, okay? We're also continuing to improve the forecasting for externally demanded jobs where there are multiple executions in a day. Those will be taken into consideration when making SLA predictions. We are also going to enhance the AutoSys job run reports. One of the questions commonly asked is, I'm doing send events to start a job, to kill a job. How is that going to affect the fact that I have multiple statuses for a job? And that's all going to be included in the report, whether the status was set by the scheduler or whether the status was set by someone doing a send event. They will be built into the report output as well. Also, 12.0.5 will have support for AutoSys Service Pack 7. The big here was the dividing the failed and the terminated alarms. Okay? iDash handles alarms, and that change didn't get put into iDash right away. It will be in 12.0.5. So on your alarm manager in iDash, you will be able to see the terminated versus the failed job alarms. Now, the one here that seamless cross-enterprise, so the ability to connect AutoSys and CA7, single view, dual engine, it will be in the next release following 12.0.5. Whether that's 12.1 or 12.0.6, I'm not sure, but it has moved to the next release after 12.0.5. Okay? What else are we looking at doing? Today, AutoSys supports wallets for Oracle. We're looking at adding that functionality to iDash as well, so you won't have to worry about when you're configuring iDash, putting in IDs and passwords. You will be able to use the Oracle wallet. Okay? We're also looking at publishing APIs, RESTful Web Services for SLA operations. So if someone wants to write an application that basically says, here's my, let's use AutoSys as an example, here's my AutoSys, let me take all the job definitions and write some algorithms and say this is how I want to create SLAs. Okay, so you'll be able to do that type of thing with these RESTful APIs. Okay? Duration-based SLAs. I want to know when my job stream, my SLA is 90% done. I don't care if it's going to be met or it's going to be missed. I want to know when it's 90% done. I want an alarm. Job stream is 90% done. 99% done is one of the requests I got. So that's something that we're looking at adding into the product so that people can send emails, open service desk tickets, that type of thing going forward. Okay. Browser-based GUI to support all the personas. I mentioned that earlier. We're definitely looking to have the FAT client replaced by web-based user interface and the EAM policies to support that. Automated SLA creation so that basically you can say if I add a new job, I create an SLA. Obviously, some people want to do that for every job. It has been asked, and then other people are going to want to have it based on what level is the job, does it have dependencies. So I'm not sure about the exact details of that, but not having to go in and create an SLA every time you add a job or every time you add a job stream will reduce the manual work required to do that. And then the last one is the what-if scenarios and impact analysis on SLAs. For those of you that use IXP, you've seen the simulation capabilities are there. What you're going to see is probably some of that capability coming over to iDash so you can say, here's my SLA. What if I add 10 jobs that run this long? Or what if I make this job run this amount of time? Some of that is already there in the admin tool with the job override, but this would make it more available to end users to kind of look at my job stream, what does it do, how is it going to react to those changes. So that's basically what we're looking at with iDash going forward. Questions?
Thanks, Karen. Let's see. All right. I'll read this question for you. Do we have any audit tracking for SLA definitions? I mean, I want to know who modified or created the SLA.
There's some audits. You wanted specifics on what they changed or how it looked when they created? I guess you're probably looking for more detail. We can get back to you on that one to see what the plans are with auditing.
All right. For those of you who would like to ask questions, please use the Q&A box right in the WebEx. It's in the lower right of your screen. I think there's a couple of you who might be on the phone line, so if you have a question, please feel free to hit #6 now to unmute your line to ask it. Here's another question, Karen. Have we got a rough ETA for the next release?
I believe they're saying June.
Let's see. We'll give everyone another minute or so to type their questions. We don't have anything else right now. Here's another one, Karen. Did something change in 12.04 versus 12.02 regarding having to specify the -U and password for CLI reports? If I mangled that question.
We did. There was an EAM policy added for reports, so some of that could have changed in terms of the EAM policy. For example, if you're running your reports from the CLI on Unix and you have your AutoSys with EAM hooked up to an Active Directory, unless you have your Unix users defined in Active Directory, EAM won't know about them. So what you have to do is add them in either through a DUG or through an application group. That way they're in EAM, but I think I've always specified the user and the password because you're running from a command line rather than from a web UI. I'm going to have to check into that. That was between 1202 and 1204. Do we know who asked that question, Len?
Yes, Stephen Anderson.
Okay, I'll get back to Steve. Or we can get back. I'll get an answer.
Or another question, is CA going to offer any live webinars anytime in the near future showing off iDash?
I think that's more your area.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, we don't have anything in the works, but I can certainly talk to the product team about that.
Maybe once 1205 comes out, we could do something.
Yeah.
And if you require something before then, you could always contact your salesperson, or if you know a technical person like myself, just reach out and say, hey, can we take a look at iDash? And we'll be more than happy to show it to you.
All right, please let us know if there's any other questions. Please use the Q&A box right in the WebEx. All right, I don't see any other questions, Karen, so I think we can go ahead and wrap up. I mean, if there are any questions that pop up after we close down, please feel free to go out and ask them in the community, and I'll make sure that Karen sees them.
And hopefully everyone saw Jean's comments that the call for speakers for CA World 19 is out there. It's going to be in Miami Beach. So definitely, if you've got a topic that you think you're doing something neat, either with iDash, AutoSys, CA7, any of the products, feel free to propose an abstract and get to the beach.
All right, thanks very much, Karen, and thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.